Travel presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine with your host, me, James Patrick Regan, otherwise known as Jimmy from the Deadlies. And today I'm speaking with singer-guitarist Sterling Drake. In our conversation, Sterling tells us about living and commuting between Montana and Nashville and his musical history in South Florida. Sterling tells us about his former day job as a rancher and his current tour schedule, which takes him all over the country as well as the UK and Iceland. Sterling takes us through how he got his producer Thor and tells us about his band and his style of Western music. And Sterling tells us about when he chooses to play solo versus using his full band. Sterling tells us about playing drums in punk bands, quite a departure from the music he's making now in the Northeast and all over the country. Sterling talks about his new album, The Shape I'm In, which has just been released, and he also talks about playing the clubs on Lower Broadway in Nashville. Sterling takes us through his guitars, recording kings, his love for vintage Gibsons, and the vintage gear he used on his album, and he tells us about his slightly unconventional touring vehicle. Finally, Sterling tells us about his passion for mental health resources for ranchers and keeping ranching alive. To find out more about Sterling and to see his tour dates and listen to his music, check out his website, sterlingdrakemusic.com. That's SterlingDrakemusic.com. Please subscribe, like, comment, share, and most of all, review this podcast. I'd really appreciate it. And please support Vintage Guitar Magazine and all the wonderful things they do for us guitar players, because they do so many wonderful things for us guitar players. Here's my buddy Sterling. Hey there, Sterling.
Hey, how you doing?
Are you in Montana?
Today I'm in Nashville. I live in Montana, but my partner and I actually have a little bit of a crash pad here in Nashville that we have near the airport. So,
cool.
With the record release being this Friday, we're doing a little album review and some PR stuff all week.
Yeah.
But yeah, so unfortunately I'm in this. It's already full swing summer here in Tennessee, and it is still winter in Montana, so it's a bit of an.
Is it humid there in Nashville or?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a Tennessean would probably tell you otherwise, but someone who's been in 7,000 feet elevation for the past season, it's a little bit different.
Yeah. Have you lived in Montana your whole life?
No, actually. Ironically, I was born in South Florida, probably the most humid place on the planet. I've lived in Montana just more than anywhere. I mean, it's home for me. But, I go back down there to South Florida, and I just literally don't understand. I can't believe I'm from there sometimes when I go there. I'm like, this is literally the exact opposite.
Do you still have family there in Florida?
Yeah, my folks just moved back. We have my grandfather ranch down there, so central southern Florida, which is the Big Cypress Indian Reservation there.
Sure.
So we're down there now. We have yet to go visit their new place. They're on the Babcock Ranch down there now, which is a kind of ranching community, and it's kind of rural community in southern Florida.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then we still have the family place that's pretty much a hunting property now than more than anything that my dad's kind of taken over in Florida. So
okay.
Yep.
In Montana, you're up high.
Yeah. I'm in Phillipsburg, which is Granite County. We're the biggest town around, which is about 800 people. But I lived for most of my time in Montana. I've lived in Ovando, which is the Blackfoot Valley.
Okay.
And that's town of about 40 people. It was at its height 69. We had a few grizzly fatalities.
Oh my God.
40. But I moved to the big city. We live in Phillipsburg now, a town of 800, and one hard road and I think one traffic light, which gets you on the highway. But other than that, it's not for people who like to be social.
Yeah. And your day job, is it ranching, or is it playing music, or is it hunting?
Ranching and horse training was a pursuit of mine for a long time. Music really is now, and I kind of pivoted, slowly made that kind of transition over to music more than ranching. And now it's a glorified hobby, but I still, we got horses, and we just were branding last week with the neighbors. I get my fill. I get satiated on the ranching front just from living back there in Montana. And I spent a lot of time on the road and living in Nashville probably since 2019, and it wasn't until this winter that I finally just bought my own place back there. So I'm able to spend my off time back home and doing the stuff I like to do, being outside of being a musician.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how many dates are you playing? Like on your website, I couldn't really find a calendar, but
Yeah, we have a bands in town link, and you can find that through Spotify and I think on Instagram as well, and a few other places nowadays. It's pretty integrated. But yeah, we've got quite a few, man. I mean, we're headed. I spent a lot of time in the Northwest in the summer with select dates. Out there, we play Texas a lot. We play the Southeast a lot in the winter. This current summer, we're playing under the Big Sky Festival and Whitefish. Oh, that's in the Whitefish, Montana. We are Keep It Country Festival, which is in all over the UK. We're playing in Wolverhampton, London, Newcastle. Oh, wow. I've got dates in Scotland. Yeah, I mean, we're really going all over. We're playing in Iceland and more dates to follow. But yeah, we're playing mostly as far as the states are concerned right now. We've got a lot of Northwest, and we're in Nashville this Friday, and we just did a run in California. Okay, so really getting out there, and we look to expand and play new markets. We played in New York City last year, and LA, and up in Canada. So yeah, if you own a venue out there, you can give us a call. We'll come out.
Are you booking yourself, or do you have an agent and the whole shebang?
I've done a lot of booking myself, but I have an agent at the moment now. Just signed with Reliant Talent in Nashville. So excited to be working with them, and it's a new venture for me. Yeah. So looking forward to filling those dates out. And where are you out of, by the way?
I'm in Northern California. I'm in Napa, California.
Oh man, that's where we got to get to. So you got to connect me with anybody out there. That's some cool country, and I've got some just friends through kind of the ranching world that lived out there, and have always told me great things, and I would love to get out your way someday.
Sure. There's Casey Turner is I don't know what size venues you're playing, but he books venues that are anywhere from like 100 to 500 cap. And, perfect. And he has a lot of shows. So
well, that's good. It's all as a musician in Montana too, there's a little bit of geographical currency that we have, and I'm sure it's the same in Northern California, where the pay is one thing, but also playing somewhere where it's got good weather and just a beautiful place is always is always a plus. There's a little bit of weight there as well.
Yeah. Well, no, when you said geographical currency, I thought you were talking about like how much it costs to drive from one end of the state to the other end of the state.
There's that too. There's a few mathematical factors here. We could probably develop an algorithm for the viability of touring a certain region, but we'll add in a separate discussion.
How'd you hook up with Thor?
Man, my pedal steel player Ryan Stigman, who's now playing with the great Zach Top these days. We lost him, but he's on to greener pastures. Sure. My really good buddy Ryan, who was playing steel with me for a long time. We were just on the road one day in the van, and I just happened to say, because I pull a lot of players from Nashville, and musically Nashville's been a big home for me. And I was saying, man, if I'm telling you, as soon as a harmonica player kind of shows up on the scene, I'm gonna have to steal him. There really isn't that many of them, and a lot of the music that I try to play really represents a Western kind of perspective on country and roots music, and that's just, of course, such an iconic instrument there, one of my favorites. And he's like, well, funny you say that. This guy just kind of moved to town. That he went to Berkeley with him in Boston, but was from Iceland. Okay. And he's Thor, and he plays a mean harmonica. And I pulled him up online, and he was like transcribing deep jazz standards on harmonica. And I'm like, I'd never heard such articulation on a harp before. And so we got hooked up there in Nashville, and he hopped on. I mean, the next week I called him and said, well, what are you doing? We're playing in North Carolina. You want to come out? And he played with us in Asheville, and I've never let him go since. And so Thor and I became just such natural good friends from such different worlds, very similar in a lot of ways, being from Iceland and then me spending time being in Montana. Yeah. There's a little bit of he's from a cold mountainous place that is very different than America, than a lot of the rest of America. And I feel Montana very different than the rest. And so there's a lot of that, and yeah, just a bright mind, really deep cat and good dude, and we've enjoyed kind of traveling, and he developed more of a role as a producer, aspiring to do that. And when it came time to cut a record, that conversation of who's, I've self-produced all my more informal projects in the past, and when this one came up, it was, really wanted to work with the right guy. And there was a few conversations with some of the bigger producers in Nashville, but I think ultimately, you can get a brilliant mind involved, but it's also about how much do they understand you and how much are they invested in you. And I had this feeling, and not to discredit any of the great producers in Nashville, but Thor is this aspiring producer, very musically intelligent, and he's invested in the project and had real ties to the music and understood it. We've been all over Montana and Texas and all these small rodeos and bars all over the country together and developed something. And so I thought that was a little bit more valuable than maybe having some big name who I'm their fifth artist they're doing that season, and I kind of go through the format with them. So I thought this would be a little bit more fun, so that's kind of how it all developed that way.
Yeah, well, listening to the record, you picked the right guy.
Yeah, he's man. He plays in a big roots rock, bluesy rock band out of Iceland called Kaleo. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but
I've heard the name. Yes.
You might have. They're pretty big band, and they're great. They got a record coming out on May 7th. Definitely give them a listen too. But so I get to kind of share him with them, and whenever he's available, he's on the road, and then we're always kind of tossing creative ideas back and forth. So
yeah. So when you're touring with a full band?
Yeah, it's pretty fluid. I mean, I do some solo stuff. Some of the stuff I do in the UK will be solo. But I'm trying to do more of the full band stuff. I really enjoy the folk angle of things as well, so I'm not afraid to go out somewhere with a guitar. It's a different performance, but I really enjoy that more engaged audience, really more about the lyrics. But yeah, now we're starting to do a lot more with the band. I've got a great group of young guys in Nashville that are just hungry and playing, and so mostly band stuff.
Yeah. And you mentioned Berkeley. Did you go to Berkeley too, or just
no? But what happens? You hire one guy, you get him really on the payroll in the band that's a Berkeley guy or one of those music school guys, and then as soon as you're like, well, I guess I need someone else, they're like, I know this guy I went to school, and I know this guy, and then before you know it, you're surrounded by college kids. And for me, that was not the route that I went, but I really enjoy it. I mean, I can't speak any more highly of these guys that I'm playing with and gotten to meet. And music school is not a one-for-one investment. A lot of times, it's a real commitment to the craft, and it can be helpful for a lot of musicians. It can also be kind of a useless endeavor for other people. But these few guys come through that program, the music program in Berkeley especially, and it's just like they're born to do this, and it really gives them this foundation that they can carry throughout their career. Not necessary. You can start touring as a picker right out of whenever, especially Instagram. You can get pretty famous on guitar or something just with the phone. But I think it really gives you a level of integrity, and I like working with those guys. We're not thinking about how can we commercialize this music, how can we make money off of it, but really how can we serve the song, and how can we do the best job here. Yeah.
What kind of music were you listening to when you're coming up?
Oh man, everything. I'm a fan of music. I mean, I've roots music, folk, and country were my real introductions to music. I think Bob Dylan and Johnny Cash were the first musicians I can ever remember being introduced through my mom. She had all the CDs, and but she did a good job. My parents did a good job of showing me kind of a lot of everything. I don't have much of an understanding of classic rock. That's something that I don't know about. The more I get out, I realize a lot of people are kind of surprised by that. But I did find, when I was in, I found this music, I found songwriting, and my dad played some Animals for me, and Hank Williams. Those are the first songs I ever learned on guitar. But then I got into drumming as well, and in high school, I lived in the Northeast, and the big thing there was hardcore music, punk music, and was almost this anti-rock thing, which is a lot of people from outside don't realize that. Like, punk is like anti-rock. They didn't want anything to do with this commercial entity, and so a lot of people think punk, you almost know rock, but man, it was a way of saying I don't want to know rock at the time. It seemed Black Flag and Gorilla Biscuits and so I got immersed in that as a drummer. I mean, that's just what people, if you were a kid in Northeast, in most of the country, that you're born in my age, I'm 29, born in 95, punk music was something you're going to find if you're a musician, trying to find pickers and players. And so I got conscripted to play in a lot of straight edge hardcore bands and stuff, and that showed me the road. That showed me like this DIY mentality, which developed out of punk music, to just make your band, press your own CDs, find an independent label. We were cutting vinyl and CDs and folding up, cardboard covers for them and dishing them out. And we made those old cassettes that we'd record and hand those out and hop in a van and play for pizza all over the country. And so that was like my first in high school, and then like a little bit outside of that was my introduction to
what was the name of the band?
I played in all sorts of bands. Played with a band called Fence Cutter. They're a straight edge band, and it's so funny because at the time I was my folks lived on a farm in like Amish country, New Jersey. Beautiful place. What was the county? Hunterdon County, I think, is the county there, right on the border of Pennsylvania. Okay. But got in with this band of dudes that were from inner city, like South Amboy, New Jersey. These really hardcore inner city dudes that were living in tough neighborhoods. And somehow my name got in the bucket of like, hey, this guy can drum. And so I fell in with them, and I'd go to band practice and in Jersey City and Edison or wherever we were, and I'd be in my cowboy boots and my Wranglers, and you're like, where did they find this dude? But it was such a fun thing for me. I lived in a pretty rural area there. Sure. And to go out, and so we played all, New York and all these other kind of places playing drums, and it was neat. I've lived in a lot of cool places, a lot of different places, Montana, Tennessee, or Florida or New Jersey. I've really enjoyed every element of country life and city life and all that stuff. So,
and traveling back and forth right now between Nashville and Montana, are you flying or are you driving?
Oh, I do a lot of flying. There's a direct flight for me. I mean, when it comes to personal travel, that's how I'm doing a lot of that. Montana's home, but especially if we're out on the road, and like right now, like we had a run. We just played California, did Nashville, and went up to North Carolina. And then it just makes more sense for me to stay here on my layover before we start doing other stuff. So like when I spend a lot of time here, right here if I can, and kind of it's just a melting pot of music here, and I can't speak highly enough of Nashville. There's plenty of things you can bash about it, but on the same, there's probably more you could say good things about Nashville that I don't really give enough credit to. But
even Lower Broadway is charming at times.
Yeah, man, I used to play at Acme and at Roberts. I moved here in 2019. I lived here for a full year, and I was drumming for a bunch of different country bands. I was playing for Caitlin Butts, who's now has a great career for herself, and Kimbo, who's like a local legend here. And I was writing down on I was on Music Row. I had an internship at a publishing house that I was also writing for, learning the back end of things, learning how to write songs, and then I was fronting these country bands playing traditional stuff. 3 hours, 4-hour sets at Roberts was a 4-hour set, and act just like you have to, wearing the whole kind of rhinestone cowboy deal, and then old Ray Price songs, and George Jones and Ernest Tubb, like that. That's an element of cutting your teeth in country music that I think, just like any folk kind of format. I mean, you can't skip that stuff. You for your own good, don't skip that era, that phase of your journey, because learning where the music comes from as you develop as a songwriter and as an artist is like of the utmost importance.
Yeah.
I really can't say that enough.
Yeah. Well, Roberts is an institution for sure.
Yeah, that's old Bobby's Bologna Shack, as we would call it.
What's the special? It's the bologna sandwich with the PBR.
Yeah, they're apparently. I saw something the other day. They were like the largest seller of PBR in the country. Which you got to think about for the size of that place, the volume of PBR that goes out that door is it's a cool. I can't say much about the rest of Broadway these days. It's a little crazy. It's kind of fallen in on itself, I think, over the years. But Roberts is great, and Acme. Yeah. I can't say better things about the folks that run Acme and how good they are to their musicians and their staff. And beyond that, I mean, there's just, so many great elements. You have all your songwriters here in Nashville, but the best thing is the musicians that are living here, that are making a living in the studio or touring. I mean, this is really where you go pick up your team and draft a team. And I think, I spent a lot of time, obviously, in Montana and on the road out in Nashville. Man, it gets a bit of a bad rap, I think, you always hear someone who lived in Nashville for a little bit. Maybe he's like a dude who's a little bit older, and he tried the Nashville thing and it didn't work. And so when you grow up outside of Nashville, you kind of hear guys like that kind of bashing it. Oh, and it's like, hey, man, Nashville's maybe not for everybody, but I'm kind of hard. But dude, if you're a bad cat on your instrument, you can really do something there. But it'll chew you up and spit you out if you don't have the gall to stand through that. And it's not for everybody anyways, but
it's like being a gambler and being in Las Vegas.
That's exactly. And some like, I hate Las Vegas. I lost people, whatever. I don't know. I don't gamble, so that's probably for my own good.
So when you're playing around, what are you playing? What's your instrument?
Yeah. Let's chat guitars, man. On the road, believe it or not, I play a Recording King.
Cool.
They're not a vintage instrument, but they make vintage style.
Sure, remake. Yeah, of course.
They're of course lower. They're not going to be your Martin. But what I love about the company, they reached out to me, years ago about putting a guitar in my hand. They don't pay for any marketing budgets on any social media or any of that stuff. Instead, they just put instruments in musicians' hands and let them go and kind of speak for them. And I got to say, as a touring musician, as somebody who does a lot of flight dates, we do a lot of traveling in the van and the trailer. It's an instrument, and as a fan of vintage music gear, I mean, my record is littered with vintage, gear. It's nice to have something that that is replaceable, cool at the end of the day, and I think that's important. They've been great, and they have an affordable guitar for a lot of folks. And if you're new to music and you want to play an old parlor style guitar or something, like, they can get you one in your hand that's not going to break the bank, that's actually intonated properly. And I think that ultimately serves the larger vision of getting people into vintage style instruments and getting people into vintage and older music. Yeah. But outside of that, I've kind of go back and forth. I really love Gibsons. I've been for a while.
Wait, is that a Recording King that you have behind you, or is it a Gibson?
This is it. I kind of figured I'd have it out. They gave me, it's a Dreadnought style, kind of D28 style. They call theirs the RD28. Okay. Man, they set it up for me in Nashville. They're at sound check, and they kind of put it through that vibrating machine that wears the guitar in. And I've also got to deal with LR bags. I'm sounding like a NASCAR right now, but
that's okay.
But they put a pickup in there, and I have their DI pedal. Actually, let me grab it. It's right here.
Sure.
I've got their LR bags. Venue DI. This thing is pretty handy too. It's got your boost in there and your tuner and some stuff. But I think when you put all that together, this thing on stage is comparable to listening to like a Martin D28.
Sure.
A Martin in a room, an old, especially like a pre-war or something, you're not going to replicate that any other way.
No.
But plugged in and in this setting that we play, it really does get the job done. So I use Recording King when I'm on the road. And then in the studio, we kind of, that's where we peel back some layers and do some other stuff. also caught me at an interesting time. I'm kind of reinventing my guitar, my approach to guitar. I'm starting to play some nylon string. There's a lot of I played an LG1 on the record, a real lo-fi kind of older Gibson, and I really like I really like where those are at. I mean, I'm not going to be able to, it's not going to sound like the most sterile or really like high fidelity instrument, but it serves a kind of something that I think that we kind of overlook in music a lot. A lot of times these days we're looking for just like the most clean, pure sound, but the context of the sound is so important. And finding instruments that almost associate with a time and a place, and it's something we kind of overlook. I think production over the years, you can look at like the 80s and you can say, oh, that was produced then in the 90s and early 2000s, and we've done so much of this like track by track, quantized, really clean, pressed sound, and I don't know. I'm kind of over that. I think like this record, we did it in a live room, direct to tape, and we explored a lot of the like less formulaic sounds or like sonic palette of country and roots music. There's harmonica, bass harmonica, accordion, bass accordion. There's a flute. There's pump organ. Stand-up bass, of course, and just a lot of different textures that you just kind of don't really hear in modern country music. Sure. But for me, I feel like I want to use them to just kind of reinvent the palette again.
Oh yeah, of course. So you own an LG1?
I have my hands on a few instruments. I'm not the sole owner of said instrument, but I do play one.
Okay.
And I gotta get my hands on one vintage instrument, and I am such a fan of, and they are, I hate to say it or even like sound pessimistic, but as a musician, as an artist right now, they've become so expensive, and they're really like almost irresponsible in a way for me to spend my money when I have ancillary marketing services and records to cut. It's hard for me to justify the payment, especially with something that I don't feel comfortable taking on the road. Like an LG1 these days is like $3,500 if you get a good one. And
for a good one, yes.
And so I'm not. I hate to sound bad. I am overdue to get one. I will definitely get one. Early investment stage, and I've also been fortunate enough to have we played in Elko, Nevada for the Cowboy Poetry Gathering.
Sure.
And, a great connection we've made over there. A friend, this gentleman named Roger, owns the old Larson's Brothers, like 19th century parlor.
Yeah.
He had a old Martin OM.
Oh wow!
I played those, so like I've gotten access to some great instruments. And,
sure.
So I play them a lot. I need to get my hands on owning one, but I'm gonna get through putting out a record first, and hopefully I have enough extra change laying around. Just home, so man,
do you ever go to Carter's or Groons or any of those places?
I was in Carter's last week for an interview. We did an interview there in their like vintage room there, and oh man, I just love that whole crew is great.
Yeah,
and I have to give a shout out to my local vintage guitar store and connoisseur, which is Mr. Greg Boyd, who owns Greg Boyd's House of Fine Instruments in Missoula, Montana.
Okay,
and if you're going through Montana or Missoula, that's the place to go. Greg. Kind of he's your guitar guru in the area. He's got a radar of where every old instrument is sitting in the West. So he's got so much great stuff, and he's let us use and borrow stuff over the years. So I am a big fan of Carter as well, and Greg, he's the man.
You need to hit up Cesar from Gibson, and since you're in Montana, like Bozeman's right there.
Yeah, so that's what I hear though. They make them there, and I've been through Music Villa, which is another great store in Bozeman. I would love if anybody at Gibson is listening to this or going to listen to this. I'm I love you guys. I love the guitar. Just and you know. Don't listen, Recording King. I'm not. This is
no, you sang their praises as well, so it's all good.
Yeah. Well, as a musician, it's important. I mean, it's important to have fluidity, and I play different guitars. I've put a lot of miles on my Dreadnought, but I think it's important it's fun to mix it up. I play a lot of gut string banjo too.
Yeah,
I write gut string, and sometimes I'll take it to guitar or elsewhere, but I love banjo as well. So
sure, well,
yeah,
right on. So when you're touring, is it a Sprinter or what is there? Is it what kind of van is it?
Yeah. Oh, this is great. This is great. You have the best questions so far. Okay, so we have traveled. Like we'll do a lot of. Right now this year we're doing a lot of flight gigs. We'll go play maybe a festival and route some local clubs and venues or staple events around those dates. And when we fly in, we drive around in a whole range of things. Sometimes a Sprinter. Yeah. We have toured. I think it was last year when we went to California. We played Southern California and made our way from Orange County to Santa Cruz. And I kid you not, we were touring in a Prius.
Oh, wow.
And so we have done you will find us in all shapes and sizes. But I will say I have held on to, and I cannot say more good things about the Toyota Sienna, which is the thing that liberated me as a musician. I think everybody has this expectation, especially if you want to look like a big artist or start, getting treated seriously, that you need to go out and buy a brand new van, industrial van. But
sure.
I have had the same Toyota Sienna since I started doing this. I put a tow hitch on that thing.
Wow.
Taking a 5-piece band down the road in that thing for 3 years now. And because I did that and owe no money on it, not only does it have incredible gas mileage and the most reliable engine you could imagine, I have saved so much money as a musician by not having the tour bus or the tour van.
Sure.
It is the funniest thing ever to see people to roll up to a gig and, like, even if you're the headliner and the opener's got like a big Mercedes Sprinter van and you roll up with our little dinky trailer and our busted cracked windshield and busted front bumper. And we played with Ricky Skaggs and Luke, Texas. It was great. We played with them in a band called East Nashgrass. I don't know if you know them at all.
No.
You'll love those guys. They're so good. We played with them in Lukenbach. We rolled up, and gates are already starting to open. It's an all-day kind of show, and we roll up in the back, and we pull up in this thing, and we had just hit a deer before we got there, and cowboy kids come out, like, just kind of roll in a minivan, and I roll up. I see Ricky just walking out of his bus there, and I'm like, "Hey boys, where are we parking the rigs at?" And he was just like, the first time he ever met me, and I'm sure he'll remember me, maybe not by name, but he'll be like, "Oh yeah, dude who just rolled up in a white busted up minivan."
That's great.
So leaving impressions all across the country in our mayo whip is what we call it. It looks like a big jar of mayonnaise. So.
And what are you guys listening to when you're driving around?
Oh man, we get kind of out there. I do, at least. I just love roots music and folk music, and I find the road is a great way to kind of just explore. And so, I mean, I listen to a lot of traditional country. I mean, of course, like Ernest Tubb and,
sure.
And, really just anything that's got that old.
But your
old
voice
sound.
is nothing like Ernest Tubb, luckily.
No, it is not. But and just kind of the story that those guys had. I mean, I love all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying that I preface with a lot of that stuff, but honestly, I'm trying to, like, I think country music is a larger part of folk music, which is a larger part of roots and world music. And I think there's a lot of ties to maybe the Celtic world or Afro beats, or what made, if you look from like what is the makeup of American music, Americana as the term we use these days, it's all of these beautiful kind of cultural vestiges. So I'm always kind of peeling back the layers and finding, okay, that's how that sound came from, but where did those guys get that sound? And Yeah, I mean, and then when I go into all these new places, I love to kind of learn about their music, especially as we're traveling. And so I listen to a lot of stuff that's more like really like, origin music, a lot of like source recordings,
Oh wow.
and contemporary kind of roots music. One of my favorite artists right now is a gal named Lisa O'Neill. She's in Ireland.
Uh-huh.
Music is very progressive in ways, but it's very, very, as soon as you hear it, you know that it's like tied to old Irish music as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we listen to a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have a charity or a nonprofit?
Yeah, I don't have it myself, but I do. I have spent some time working in that world, just my time ranching.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've used my music to kind of elevate some important topics amongst the West and within Montana and within my own community. And as somebody who sings, cowboy songs and Western music, there's a lot of popularity there right now. And I think there's it's a controversial thing. People kind of hate that everybody's coming to Montana or all of a sudden wants to dress like a cowboy. But on the other hand, people are happy that there's people that care about their culture. And this conversation is kind of tense. But to me, I like to think about there's a lot of people that are finding out about country music and Western culture now that weren't there before. Country is cool and it's easy to see that it's kind of having its day in the light. But
sure.
If we can take that renewed audience and maybe direct them and channel that enthusiasm to things that actually benefit the community, I think it's a good solution to this kind of dynamic. And so I am using I released a small folk EP that I donated to a group called the Western Landowners Alliance that focuses on preserving and helping keep working ranches alive in Montana.
Sure.
So they work more on the private end of things, like making sure that these ranching families don't have to sell out. There's without getting too political, there is a big shift in the way that agriculture is working in America, where ranchers and farmers are losing the ownership of land. There's like corporate interests that are coming in and buying a lot of that stuff. Yep. Some of which is real estate interest, and they don't really care that these ranches existed for hundreds some years, and they want to turn it into a subdivision. So they give resources to folks to keep the ranches open, and in return, there's like tax subsidies or grants that they could be afforded if they're being good stewards of the land and keeping the grass green and growing and the soil clean and the water clean and making sure wildlife has a place on their ranch. Yeah. And so it's a thing hand in hand with, the agricultural community and the conservation community coming together, finding a solution culturally, economically, environmentally, that's really important. And so that's like a life pursuit of mine, a life kind of thing that I will stand for.
Yeah.
So that record was a good way to do that. And then now with this next full length, my record coming out, yeah. I talk about a few things. One of which is mental health in agriculture, which is super important. Montana has the highest suicide rates in the country.
Wow. And,
I think like rural America, small town America is kind of fallen to the wayside in a lot of ways. And, as the years go on, we just lose a lot of resources. They have a hard time accessing resources you see in urban environments or suburban areas. Yeah. Small town hospitals, mental conversation about therapy. These things are really important. But while they are under threat, there is access. There's a lot of things. So if you go to my website, there's a resource page, and it's laid out by the Farm Bureau of resources by state and by occupation in the agricultural industry that you might be afforded by either state grants or through private nonprofit enterprise. But so if you know anybody that's dealing with mental health and they work in the agricultural industry, they need to know that it's okay to talk about these things. It's okay to have conversations about your health and to open up, and that there are plenty of resources that are afforded to these people too. So that's a big pursuit for mine as well.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, it's been great talking to you, Sterling. I appreciate your time.
Oh man, thank you so much, James. I've enjoyed the conversation, and hey, call me anytime. I'll chat guitars with you. Really go down the rabbit hole yet, but I'll spend some time chatting with you about old wooden instruments for sure.
Okay, anytime. Well, thank you, Sterling.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a great good luck with the record and the whole thing. Break a leg.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hope someday.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Have Guitar Will Travel. You can catch up on all the things I'm doing at thedeadlies.com, and I'm on all the social media platforms as well. And please support Vintage Guitar and all the wonderful things they do, because they do many, many wonderful things for us guitar players. Thanks. Please subscribe. Please tell a friend, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.